Ring ding 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 ring ding 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 ding. Love it. Literally love it. I will never get sick of that intro. Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Discourse in Magic. This episode is wow. It is one of the most information-packed episodes that we've ever had. We spoke with Lou Serrano, who is from sixfiguremagic.com, where he teaches magicians how to do exactly what we spoke to him about. So not only is he a performing magician who is performing all over the place and is actually, walking the walk, but he's also talking the talk, because on sixfiguremagic.com he's selling a product and he's been very successful with the product, and the reviews have been out of this world for the way that he helps magicians do exactly what he's doing. So we got to speak to him about every question that we had about getting booked and getting booked more. If that is something that interests you, if you either are a working magician or you are striving to be a working magician, this is an episode that you need to listen to. He delivers not only top tips, but also the truth about what is actually required to book an insane amount of high caliber magic gigs. If that's you and you want to be booking high caliber gigs that, pay what you're looking for in the area that you're looking for, he has a ton of information and he shares it all with us. If this is not the first episode that you've listened to of Discourse in Magic, then what that means to me is that you know who we are. And I would honestly love to know who you are. And the best way to do that is to hop on discourseinmagic.com and join our newsletter. We have a ton of exclusive stuff that only goes to our newsletter. And if you like the type of content that shows up in our podcast, in our blog posts, in our YouTube videos, Instagram, or anything, if you like Discourse in Magic in any way, then I would love if you came and joined us on the newsletter, because we would love to hear more about you, and we would love to find out about what your interests are and what you want us to find out about. We want to hear from you. So without further ado, here is, by the way, the last survey that we took, people told us that they wanted to learn how to get themselves out there more. And the reason why these episodes exist is because of that. So we really want to make sure that your voices are heard. So that's the kind of thing that'll happen when you join our newsletter. And this is a beautiful example because we got some awesome information from Lou Serrano. Here it is. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah.
My name is Tyler.
And we are here with the very bright, the internet famous for exactly what we're talking to him about, the one and only Lou Serrano. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
We are very excited to have you and to pick your brain about some of the subjects. This month, the theme of the month is, getting booked. And I think that, we've brought it up a couple times in the last little while, but the move into professional magic is, it's difficult. There's a lot of different things you need to do, and the more information and the more lessons that we can get to help our viewers and often ourselves to dive deeper into the field, the better. So we thought we would chat with you about it. But as usual, we will start with our regular question, which is, how did you get into magic? How'd you get caught here?
Well, I first started doing magic when I was 10 years old. I received a magic set for my birthday. I did magic for about 5 years, and at the time I had never seen a professional magician. I had only seen stuff on TV commercials. So everything that I learned was all store-bought tricks, and I did that for 5 years. And after about 5 years, when I was 15 years old, I took up music. I started playing guitar and I started playing in a rock band. And from the time I was 19 till I was 29 years old, all I did was play music. So from the time I was 15 till I was 29, I didn't even think about magic.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
it was all music. And then after 10 years of playing professionally in nightclubs all over Southern California, my last band had broken up. I decided to quit uh, playing music and then get a real job because I was broke. And and so then about a month after I made that decision, I took up magic again as a hobby, and this time I focused all on a sleight of hand close up magic with cards and coins. Within a year, people were calling me up and hiring me to perform at parties. So then I realized, well, maybe I should turn this little hobby of mine into a business, and but I made the decision right away that I would not make the same mistakes as a magician that I had made as a musician. And so at the same time that I was studying all the magic and all the sleight of hand stuff, I started studying marketing and business development and personal development, and I started applying all of these new principles to this business. And that's what made the entire difference in this business about being a successful magician as opposed to an unsuccessful musician. And so for the first 3 years, I did it part time. I had a day job, and I did this part time. But then for the last 19 years, it's been my full time occupation. I now do not only strolling close up magic, I do close up shows, but I do stage shows, and I do everything in between. I've traveled all over the country and the United States and internationally as well. And so now my focus is corporate work, corporate magic, and it's the best life I can have ever thought of.
Well, that's awesome. And it's awesome that, your jump into really taking magic seriously happened right at a time where, you were open to finding out that it was a good business opportunity as well, which, often for magicians, before they even think of it as a business opportunity, they're like 18 years deep of doing the same sleight, you know what I mean? And then they almost have to like fix all their unlearn all the things that don't transfer well to getting booked and start pivoting it the way that it does. But obviously if you get into it right at the time where you realize you're trying to really expand, then you get to put that twist on it.
When I was a musician, I had a very simple business philosophy. And my philosophy was that if I could be the best musician that I possibly could be, writing the best songs I could possibly write, that success would automatically follow. But that was not the case.
Right.
So that's why when I started doing magic, I figured, okay, there's obviously something more to than just being a great magician if I want to be successful. And that missing link was all the marketing and the business development stuff. And so you can't, magic is a fantastic hobby and it can teach you a lot of things. But if you want to be successful in the business, then you got to treat it as a business.
And you have to act like that business would.
Yeah. And I always tell people that, people think that my success comes from, that it comes easy. But I spend at least 40 hours a week on the business of magic. Now, the first few years, most of my time was spent learning new magic. But then at a certain point, there's a transfer or a transition where now it's like most of my time is spent on the business of magic as opposed to learning new magic. And so when people take up magic, they want to do this professionally, they think they're going to spend 2, 3, 4 hours a week on the business and they're going to get the same results that I get doing 40 hours a week in the business. Well, that's not the case. If you want to have full-time results in this business, then you have to put in full-time effort to getting that business.
Of course. And I think that it's definitely what separates the people that make it from the ones that don't. And one of the big things is I know for myself, the power of, and just talking about, the business of magic, the power of, reaching out. So many people, they want to get involved in magic and they kind of are like waiting. And the opposite, being on the offensive and being the one who sends the emails, and we'll chat about part of what you would systematize, whether it's emails or whether it's phone calls. But I know for myself, just like sending those emails are the thing that gets you to book the gig. So obviously, like you're saying, putting in hours at the important parts. Sometimes the important parts is to make sure that your magic is pristine, but then you do have to make sure that you're putting in those hours and reaching out to businesses or whoever your clients are.
Sure, yeah, and it's I'm not certainly not trying to discount the fact that if you want to be successful, that the better your show, the easier it is going to be for you.
For sure.
So you do have to put in that time and effort
What's the
into putting
Steve
together the
Martin
best
line?
show.
Be so good they can't ignore you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so that's
You know,
Steve Martin. So that's, and I think that it still remains to be true. And there are people who we've spoken to, who we've asked, how did you make it? And they're like, I don't know. People just found me.
no,
I did,
no,
and I
I know
could,
exactly how I made it.
exactly,
So
like, I could never subscribe to that thought. Like, it's like, well, I tried things and they didn't work. And then when I tried other things, they worked. So I did more of those things. Like, that's me.
exactly.
But I've heard a ton of times from people that are just like, I don't know. And I think that, as much as it's nice to be those people, I'd rather learn the steps. I'd rather learn steps,
Yeah.
than.
I'd rather have something tangible than just I got lucky.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's when you're doing it that way, it is luck. It's and it's not replicatable.
Exactly.
You can't duplicate that. It's like you can't just wait for your phone to ring or have someone discover you. In most cases, it's not going to happen.
100%. So one of the most exciting parts about your sort of story into magic is the beginning where you jumped into the business aspect. And the reason I think it's exciting is because I think that I think it reflects a lot about where our audience is. Where our audience, a lot of people who are magic hobbyists, and a lot of people who are doing some shows and would like to do more. So what you said is you started doing, close-up cards and coins, and people started booking you for events. Was that just fluke word of mouth, and then after that you decided to take approach? Or was there something that you did that got people to start, phoning you right when you had, within a couple of years or months of your dedication to card and coins?
Well, there's two things that came into effect. The first thing is that, as any hobbyist, you want to perform for people,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would perform every chance I would get, and normally for friends and family. If I'd meet some people at a party or something, I would do
And
magic,
how old were
and
you at
people
the
would.
time?
Oh, I was 29 years old when
Cool.
I took it up.
Cool.
29 years old. So I got a really late start in magic. But I found out that right away that it's probably something that I should have been doing all along because I had a natural knack
Mm-hmm.
for the sleight of hand stuff, and so it came to me very very quickly, as opposed to being a musician, which took me years of practice to get good at it. I got really good at magic really really soon, really fast, and so when people would see me, they'd obviously wanna they would think I was a professional, which
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. So they
Because you
would
could
ask,
talk the
"Oh,
talk and walk the walk, and you were
yeah."
there.
I mean, yeah, it's sort of. It's like looking back, I stunk. I was not very good at all. But then so that was the initial way that I got work, and so when I realized that maybe I could get
Multiply
some
that
gigs
and do
for.
something real.
Yeah, I actually got a mentor in the business, and it was a guy that had been doing his only job. He was my age, but the only thing he'd ever done for a living was magic, and he used to work at a bunch of restaurants, and so he became my mentor for about 9 months. He taught me the business of magic, at least as far as what he knew, and so within a year and a half of me taking up magic, I got my first restaurant gig.
Mm-hmm.
And doing the restaurant gig, looking back, I mean, I was terrible, but but I remember doing the audition for that restaurant gig, and I was nervous. My hands were shaking, and I was doing a set at a table, and the manager came over to see what I was doing, and he looks what I'm doing, and my hands are shaking. I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to get this gig, and so at the end of the night, he hired me. He said he thought it was great, and I had that gig for 9 years, and
wow.
yeah, and since then, I no longer do restaurants as of 2 years ago. I don't do restaurants anymore, but I did restaurants for 21 years,
Wow.
and so 21, yeah, about a year and a half ago is when I stopped doing restaurants. But the longest restaurant gig I had was for 18 years. I worked there
Wow.
twice a week, and after they closed down, and that was the last restaurant I had, and so I no longer do restaurants because I focus on the corporate market these days. But going back to when I first started. Doing the restaurant gigs, it forced me to get really, really good because I had to do a lot of magic in a very short amount of
Regularly,
time, and
100%.
and I had to do it over and over again. I would give out my business card, people would call me, and that was like the genesis of the business.
Right, the whole sequence.
How did you get that first gig? Like you said you had an audition, but how did you line up that audition?
What I used to do is I used to just walk into restaurants, ask for the owner or the general manager, and I would just give them a little sales pitch, which is a really easy sales pitch. I would just let them know that I was a professional magician specializing in performing in restaurants, even though at the time I hadn't worked at a single restaurant ever. And I would let them know that I could come in for an hour, work for free with no obligation, and they could see what I do. And if they liked it, we would talk about how we would continue forward, and if not, no big deal. And so the first time I went out looking for a restaurant gig, I approached 7 restaurants,
Mhm.
and one of them hired me. After that, I found that I would average approaching 20 restaurants, and if I could approach 20 restaurants, I would average one gig out of 20. Now, with that being said, it's like there were times. There was one time I remember looking. I went to 50 restaurants, and I didn't book any. 50 restaurants, didn't book a single gig. Pretty frustrating. I took a break. About 3 months later, I went back out there. The very first restaurant that I walked into hired me on the spot,
Wow.
and I had that gig for 8 years. So
So it's sort of
so
like is it sort of like hit or miss then with the restaurants? Is it kind of like you're going for the best thing? Did you learn over time as to how to get that rate, that sort of percentage, like success rate, conversion rate up a little bit higher, or is that just the way that it is and it's just a numbers game?
I think that if you're working family restaurants, it's a numbers game.
Cool.
The more restaurants you hit, the better likelihood that you're going to land a gig. And I think approaching restaurants is a really easy thing. It could be unnerving to people who have never done it before, but I
Hmm.
think once you walk into the first restaurant, and you ask for the owner or manager. The second one is easy.
Hmm.
It's not
It's
a big
just
deal.
doing it, that's all it comes down to, which is good,
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
I remember when I first went out on the first day that I went around, I just walked for like half an hour before I actually went into a place. And then as soon as I went into one, it was like easy peasy, one after another. Like no
Yeah.
stress about it.
Now, if you're talking about high-end restaurants or country clubs, I've also done, those gigs are a lot harder to land.
for sure.
Family restaurants are pretty easy. If you're looking at a country club or a high-end restaurant, it's a lot more difficult to land those gigs. And I think that the way to book those to increase your chances is to really go in there with a lot of confidence. And I think also that it's got to be after you've had the experience of working in restaurants for a while, because doing performing in that situation, it's automatically going to give you more confidence to not only do your magic in a really good way, but also to present yourself in the best way possible.
For sure. And of course, like a high-end paying country club is not the place to earn your keep, It's not the place to start figuring out how to do your sets. That's the place to do your well-rehearsed restaurant sets.
Yeah, I think so, and but I wouldn't dissuade anybody from doing it. It's just that your closing ratio is going to be a lot
For sure.
lower than if you approach a family
For
restaurant.
sure. So let's say that there's a magician who is trying to, you know, pierce the magic industry and trying to get in there. And what would be your first steps for them? Go for a restaurant gig, or do you have another sequence? Or
It depends if you're talking about close-up magic or stage magic. If you're talking about close-up magicians, then yes, I think that restaurant magic is the ideal way to start, because it forces you to get really good really quickly. It forces you to learn how to approach people cold. It teaches you how to handle any kind of problems. It also teaches you all about angles,
Mhm.
because there'll be you could be working a set at a table, and there are people behind you, and you got to learn how to cover those angles so that you're not exposing all of your magic to the people that are behind you.
Hmm.
And so it's a great training ground. Um, and also you're going to run into people that are rude, and so when you when that happens to you, it's like, how do you handle it? Because then when you get hired for a private event or a corporate event where you're doing strolling close-up magic, all of that stuff has happened to you.
Exactly.
And
It's old
now when
news.
you yeah, so now you know how to handle it. And so if you're booking a high-end corporate gig of just doing some strolling magic, you're not gonna have a problem. It's gonna be easy for you now, and you're not gonna burn any bridges by doing a bad job because you've never had something like that happen to you, because it would have happened to you in the restaurant.
So, how does working at a restaurant, or does working at a restaurant help with finding other gigs in terms of other people pointing you to stuff? Like, I've worked at one for about 6 months, and I got a couple little things out of it. But I'm wondering, because the reason I asked is, if somebody's getting into magic, I'm wondering if a restaurant is something that would provide them with momentum, or what would allow them to get multiple gigs.
Multiple restaurant gigs, or multiple gigs like outside of the like regular gigs, like house parties
I
and,
mean,
and
I,
things like
I
that.
figure multiple restaurant gigs is just doing the same thing to do. I got the first one a second time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I would say, other gigs.
Well, if you're working a restaurant, the one thing I recommend is everybody gets a business
Right.
card. Everyone gets a business card, and also you learn how to talk to people just as a regular human being, and you see what it is that they do. I've booked trade shows from my restaurant gigs, and it's just because I asked questions. I wanted to know what these people, who they were, what they did, and if they mentioned anything about trade shows, it's like I would insert myself into that situation
Hmm.
by saying, well, I also perform at trade shows, and then I would tell them what I do. Now, see, most people think that if you're working at a restaurant, they see at a restaurant, they figure that's your job, that's what you do, you don't do anything else. But if you let them know that you're also available for their private events and their corporate events, now there's a switch gets flipped in their head where it's like, oh, I didn't realize that. It's like,
Hmm.
maybe then they start thinking of ideas how you can how they can use you. Also, I think that when you have a business card, I think most people don't really know what they're doing with their business card. And so with my business card, especially with the restaurant work, my business card would book me gigs,
Hmm.
because I have a system on what I want on that business card in order to get people to have an interest in what I do for their events. And so if you just have your name, your phone number, and professional magician or whatever it is, you're not going to get a whole lot of gigs from the restaurant gig once people leave the gig. So if you have something that goes into more detail about what it is that you do, um, I with my business card, it's like, not only do I have the basic information, I have testimonials, I have mine's a tent business card. It's not just a one-sided card. It's just a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. But um, the business card would book me gigs even when I wasn't there.
Are there any tips that you would recommend to somebody for one of their first or second iterations of their business card to get it to be, as as good as they can
As
possibly make
fruitful
it?
as possible.
Hmm.
Sure. First thing is, your business card should always have your picture. Okay, because once people leave, they don't remember you. It's like, you could do a great set, they might think you're a great guy, but they forget who you are. So it has to have your photo on there. Now, when I'm talking about this, I am definitely talking about this business of getting gigs as opposed to being an artistic magician, because I know a lot of magicians that are phenomenal artists, and they I don't think any of this applies to them, because that their end goal is not about booking gigs. It's
100%.
about doing something that is artistic and they're proud of.
100%.
So I'm talking about booking gigs. And so with the business card, my recommendation is to have a photo, so your contact information, of course, so that they can contact you. Um, I recommend a 10th business card. On the back of the 10th business card, I have 1 to 3 testimonials or testimonials from people that have hired you in the past. On the inside, I have more social proof of like maybe company logos of people that have you performed for. And it could, even if you're starting out, if you've done anything for even for free and you worked for a company event, it's like you could put down the logo and it's gonna help you get work. But also you can then let people know what it is that you do. Like in my business card, it'll say something like, whether you have a group of 4 or 4,000, I have a program that fits your needs, and I'll list the things that I do. Those are just a few ideas.
I've never ever heard of the idea of putting someone else's company name, or I don't think I've ever even seen a quote or a testimonial bit on somebody else's business.
Yeah, it's always been like a redirect to a website which has all that information. But I like the idea of having it all in one place, ready to go. There's no extra steps for them.
Right. When you're working in a restaurant, and someone calls you from your business card, they're ready to hire. Mm-hmm. They don't need to go to your website.
That's true.
And so when you have all the social proof already there on the business card, then there's no need to go to visit your website, and they don't need to look at your video because
they saw you.
They already saw you live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very clever, and I've never that definitely puts a twist on what I was thinking, and I especially like what you said about the fact that they don't need to go to your website. A lot of magicians are. I'm obsessed with the idea of pushing to the website. All the social media and all the everything pushes to the website, but I think that it's very clever that the business card is, for many people an end result, and you don't necessarily need to push to the website. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, if they're seeing you live, the next step is just to have them call you about their event. That's the next step. They don't need to go see anything else.
Awesome. And I think that it's awesome. One of the things you mentioned earlier is the idea of, when you're actually at the tables, making it a point to find out about them and what they do, not just for the sake of your magic being interactive, but for the sake of, you're really increasing the likelihood that they're going to say something that you could work at or you have worked at in the past, and you can start making that connection.
Sure. And people are going to do business with people they know, like, and trust.
For sure.
Right? That's an old adage. And so when you ask somebody else about them, about what it is that they do, now you're showing an interest in that person, and now this person thinks, oh, this guy's a really nice guy. Mm-hmm. They don't even realize it is just because you're asking them about them, and obviously everybody's favorite subject is themselves.
For sure. That's awesome. What if somebody was trying to do a little bit more stage magic? Would you say keep away from the restaurants, or would you maybe still use it as a pivot to start getting into those other bigger places?
If you have no interest in close-up magic, then there's no need to do do any restaurants. So, I mean, with that, it's harder to get the experience, because obviously the more experience you have, the easier it is to do shows and the better show you're going to do. But once you have a show, I would say the number one way to book gigs is to have an effective website,
right,
and have an effective means to drawing traffic to that website.
I have to pause you to just tell you that I love your website, and the reason why I bring it up is because I have a guilty pleasure of looking at magicians' websites and making fun of all of the weird things that don't make any sense, that are wrong and strange. I love it. So I look at every magician website that I can, and I have to tell you that yours is beautiful, and all of the things that I vouch for that are so important, which is the number one thing, which I've spoken about before on this podcast, but it's the idea of making sure that your phone number and email contact button are everywhere, because that's the whole purpose. And the amount of magicians' websites I've been to where there isn't even a contact page or an obvious phone number, and like, it's just crazy. I run away, and I couldn't imagine somebody actually trying to book them. So I just want to say you definitely know websites if that's what you're talking about right now, because yours is top notch. It's got all the right things, photos, videos, and testimonials. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I got to tell you that I've actually been criticized for my website because it's not a professionally designed website. I designed that myself, and I'm not a designer. And and so, but the thing is, it's an effective
right.
website, and I'd rather have an effective website over a beautifully designed website that doesn't give me gigs.
100%. I'm with you, and I also think that, you know, and this is something that I'll be posting about very soon on this blog and podcast, is I'm in the middle of designing my own website, you know, same idea. And I think that for magicians, you know, if our main breadwinner is our website, we need to be able to edit it and change it as we need to. And it's unless you've got someone else organizing your bookings, then you should be the person organizing your website, I feel. Because sometimes you think, you read it over a couple months later and you go, that was the writing that I chose to use? Like that was, you know, or you say, oh, maybe this could be tweaked. Or you look at the positioning of something and you say, this doesn't look right. And I think that it's just very valuable to be able to, you know, build, or at the very least be able to edit all of the details between photos, videos, info, and things like that on your website, because you might need another page. You know what I mean? So I just think, the value of building it yourself, you know, like you said, people often give a lot of flack for building their own websites, because obviously there's little tiny bits of things that a professional designer could do much better.
Yeah, I think that it's a worthy thing to be able to design the website and then have a real designer make it look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like get all the things that you really want in there, and then have someone else clean it all up so that it looks like it wasn't done by some amateur. With my website, the most input I had was I had a designer at least give me some lessons on fonts and things like that, so that it wasn't all over the place.
Yeah.
Because when I first designed it, it looked like a child had, you know, put it together.
100%, I'm with you. And
Yeah.
but it's those little stuff, you know, it's fonts, it's a little bit about spacing and wording, and, you know,
I
colors,
think it's important to sort of submit to someone who knows what they're doing, in a sense. Like,
for sure.
I've many times I've designed stuff and been like, I really like the way this looks, and then I'll show it to someone who has you know, a keen eye for design, and they're like, that's totally not aligned, these fonts are stupid, everything, none of this makes sense. And then I'm like, well, I guess I'm an idiot. But I think it's important not to feel dumb, but understand what you want, and then understand that there's people who know more than you.
Sure, and the nice thing about you know, designing your own website, or having the ability to edit your own website, is that you can do this any time of the day. I mean, there are times when I'm up at 2:00 in the morning and I have an idea to change the website, and it'll just be a simple little tweak, and I go in there, and 2 minutes later I'm done.
Exactly.
You know, I don't have to call anybody up and wait for them to have time to do it. It's just done immediately. And if I don't like it, I can change it back, or I keep changing it till I like it.
100%. What are your sort of tips about having? Sorry. So before, I was just about to ask you what your tips were for a website, but before I do, we sort of got a little bit sidetracked, because you said for somebody who's looking to book a show, they want to be sending the traffic to the website. So before we talk about the website, how do you recommend somebody who's trying to get into doing more shows, sends traffic to their website?
Well, there's two main ways. Well, there's three main ways depending on what your market is.
Ads?
So definitely. If you're a magician for hire, which is what I am, I'm a magician for hire. There's two things that you can definitely do. The first is SEO, search engine optimization, optimizing your website for the keywords that are important to you and the people that you're trying to attract. And so, like for me, I rank on the first page for several of my keywords.
Cool.
I think about 4 or 5 of my main keywords, I'm on the first page. And so now people, when they're looking up certain things, whether it's a corporate magician or corporate entertainment, um, they they'll find my website,
Hmm.
and so they'll go to it. The second way is Google AdWords. Um, Google AdWords is a gold mine of business, and you're targeting people who are looking for magic at that moment.
They're already ready
People,
with their phone in their hand, ready to make the call, and they're just typing into
yeah,
Google for a local magician for their subject.
exactly.
Hmm.
And so if you have a Google AdWord campaign that or campaigns because they're like I have like 5 or 6 different campaigns depending on the market. Um, you're going to drive traffic to the site. You're going to get more work. Now it's easy to spend a lot of money in Google
Hmm.
AdWords and not make anything. Uh, but it's one of those things where the more you study it, the more you learn about it, the more effective it is. And I it's one of the biggest ways that I get new business. Google
Google
AdWords.
AdWords and SEO.
Yeah.
Is there any SEO, either like software or something that you recommend, or is it just the standard stuff of putting up all the words, getting a Google business account? You know what I mean?
Yeah, Google has they have like a starter guide for
Mm-hmm.
SEO, and if you just follow that stuff, you're going to do really well. I'll give you one big tip that has worked amazingly well for me as far as SEO is concerned. Once you have all the everything in place, all the what Google wants, whether it's your H1 tags, which is your headline
Yep.
tag, and everything else the way Google wants it. The the best way to then increase your rankings in Google is to have a blog
Yep.
that you update on a regular basis.
Because you bring content
And
to the site.
you're bringing a lot of content to the site. And if you blog um, is consistent with the keywords that you're targeting, or if you have your headlines in your blog, each blog subject, blog post, if you're targeting certain keywords, um, that's going to help you rank as well. A lot of my blog posts will actually rank in Google for certain
Higher
keywords.
than the
So it's
site.
like instead of people just going to the homepage, they'll go to the actual blog post, and then from once they're on the website, they can go to wherever they want on that website.
So are all of your blog posts sort of about magicians for corporate events? Like how do you get a wide array of blog posts if you're trying to make it pertinent to the audience? Or do you do blog posts for magicians, blog posts for event bookers, and just
I try to mix it all up, so that way there's a big variety of stuff on my blog. I just blog about things that are going on in my life in the business. So if I'm doing if I get a review for a magic show, I'll blog about that. If I'm doing a big gig, I'll blog about that. If I'm doing a motivational speech, I'll blog about that. It's like whatever it is that sometimes I'll blog about just if I'm on vacation, I'll blog about my vacation. So I just mix it up.
interesting. I've always saw the blogs on the websites, and I definitely knew. I knew that it was an SEO goldmine. It's part of the reason why we blog at Discourse and Magic. But I've always thought that that there was a strange discrepancy between, like I always thought it was weird to have a magician with 6 blog posts all about, how to book a magician for your corporate event, which I think is clearly like a keyword land grab, and
Yeah.
I'm not really I was never really sure who was reading it. And in my eyes, like making sure that the audience of the blog is the same as the audience of people you're trying to bring to the website is super critical.
Sure. Now, like with your podcast, you have a certain target market, which
Mm-hmm.
is other
Mm-hmm.
magicians. So you could be blogging. All of your blogs should be about
Which they
the
are.
business of
Yeah.
of magic. Exactly. So now, if you're a magician for hire, well, you're also a personality. To the average person, you are a bit of a celebrity.
Right.
And so now they want to know who you are, right? And they'll actually, go through your blog and read your posts and watch your videos. Not all of them. most of them won't actually, but there's a certain portion of that population that will actually read all of your blog posts. And you can't write a blog post and then think that people are going to get there. You then
To
have to
share
promote
it
it.
and yep.
Exactly. Get on social media and promote it everywhere and get people to click on it, and Google will notice, and it helps you with your SEO, and it helps you build relationships with people, because there are plenty of people out there that eventually they feel like they know you. It's like, and again, people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust, and they get to know you, they like you, they start to trust you, they'll hire you.
Cool. And I think that's a very valuable piece for magicians, because it's not that difficult to write a little bit and upload it every week or every couple weeks. And I know that for SEO, you usually want to hit like more than a couple hundred words just so that it ranks as something. But above that, you're just making sure that it's about the right topics, and as you said, you can blog about just about anything, whatever's going on in your business. Cool. That's really interesting. So now let's speak a little bit more about the website. So the blog, that's on the website. Is there something that you recommend? I'll just go through a couple of major points. Your homepage, anything that you recommend to be on there? Do you put the blog there, or is it just a glorified landing page to get people to click book now?
Well, I think that almost all of your pages on your website should be landing
I agree.
pages. And so the homepage, like, let's say,
And
for
just
me,
for
my
sorry
homepage
to
is,
pause, I didn't
yeah.
say this. Just for the people at home, a landing page is a page of a website where you're hoping to get somebody to convert. I think that's sort of a good way to say it. But to click, to advance, to buy.
Yeah, it's basically speaking the language of your ideal customer.
Right.
So if you're trying to get corporate work, obviously you want to get them to the page that talks specifically about corporate
Right.
work. So, but I think any landing page, including your homepage, which I believe should be a landing page, obviously should not only have your contact information, but your promo video above the fold. They should be able to see that promo video immediately when they get to the
website.
your website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that see, for me, I don't even want anyone calling me if they don't watch the video.
Right, because you don't want them to be like, "What kind of thing do you do?" And you're like, "Okay."
Yeah, but it also sets me up so that price becomes less of a barrier.
Right, because they see all the
so
screaming fans and the floating things and
Yeah.
whatever.
Exactly. So I want them to see the video. So that's a big thing. You also want as much social proof on there about what you do as possible. So I have videos. I have video reviews. And by the way, that's one thing I wanted to talk about, is that people have testimonials about their business, and testimonials are great, but they should be relabeled and they should be called reviews, because nobody cares about testimonials, but everybody cares about reviews. Whenever you look up anything, whether you're looking up a restaurant or a plumber or whatever, it's like you don't go in Google and say, well, let me get some testimonials from this guy. You say, no, I
Right.
want to get some reviews
Right.
about this guy.
Something that
So
sounds completely honest, right?
Yeah. So all of your video testimonials should be called video reviews, and instead of having a page with testimonials, it should be a page of reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And so social proof, obviously your demo, and then multiple calls to action. And the call to action should be either to call you or to fill out your booking request form. And I guess in some cases it could be send you an email. I do not want anyone sending me an email, because I want them to either call me or fill out my booking request form.
Because if they call you, you're going to make them fill the booking request form.
No, I don't.
Oh, really?
Ideally, I want them to call me, because now I'm able to build a rapport with the person. I'm able to figure out what it is
And
that they
suit
really
them
want.
correctly, yeah.
Exactly. But if a lot of people don't want to call, so they want to have the least amount of contact with you as possible, so they'll fill out the booking request form. But in my booking request form, the phone number is required because I'm not going to respond with an email because there's no way to build rapport with the
Hmm.
person. So I'm going to respond with a phone call, and that way I can build rapport and try to sell my services so that I can fit what they need. And a lot of times it's like if let's say for instance I'm I get a gig for a corporate show and I'm quoting $5,000 for the show and they may only have a budget of
Hmm.
$1,000. Okay, so if but if it's an email, they may not even respond to you,
Hmm.
right? It's that they may just, oh, this guy's too
Yeah.
expensive, we can't afford him, and just move on to the next person.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on the phone, you can now build a rapport and find out that their budget is only
It's not
$1,000.
like you're gonna
Now,
say I quote $5,000 and then they're gonna hang up the phone immediately without being like that's out of our price range.
right, right. So now you realize that somewhere between $1,000, which is their budget, and $5,000 is what you want. That somewhere in between, there's got to be a meeting point where you can both feel like you're getting what you
Yep.
want.
That's
You know, so
that's valuable. And one of the things that I usually say when I'm sharing my 2 cents on this, and it's been my experience so far, is I always say this across the board. Is I say, get me an interview, get me on the phone, because we're magicians, and we've been talking and schmoozing people up for as long as we've been doing magic, and I think that we're all so much better at speaking with people and finding out what their wants and likes and needs are than we are at doing that over email. Only people
yes,
who have
yes,
been emailing all their life can be experts at how to craft the right words to an email that convert and stuff like that. And I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know what words in an email convert, but I do know when I speak and there's a big pause, it probably means that they're not that interested. You know what I mean? Like I know
sure,
how to take cues, verbally, but it's very difficult to take cues,
There's no
over text.
tonality in text, right?
Mhm.
yeah, I hear you.
Cool. So one of the things that I wanted to ask is about if you have any like funnels or systems. You already spoke about using Google either on AdWords or on, just SEO, but I'm wondering if there are any, systems or specifically systems that have multiple steps in them, because that seems to be a very popular thing in the marketing world. But I know for myself, there aren't many steps to my marketing funnels. It's send me an email and you know what I mean? Or get in contact with me and then we'll figure out the event. But I know that sort of funnels like that are very popular. Do you have any, that's
Sure.
something that you work with, or you just work on getting them from where they are to contacting you?
Well, are you talking about automated funnels?
Yes, but not necessarily. I know that a lot of people have like pre-written emails that are not necessarily automated because they need to switch up a couple names and send them out, but it basically does the same thing. So
Yeah.
automated funnels or, pre-written
Templates.
templates that people go
Okay.
through.
Well, like for automated funnels, the only time I use automated funnels is for my products because I do sell products for
Right.
magicians, and so I do have some of that stuff automated. When it comes to booking shows, um, I should have funnels, but I don't really.
Hmm.
It's like I have templates for emails if so that way I don't have to type
Rewrite
every
them every
word
time.
out
Yep.
when but I do have email templates, but it's I've spoken to a lot of people who have automated funnels, and I have mixed feelings about it. Um, so to answer your question, no. I want someone to get in touch with me, or I'm going to get in touch with them because I do also do prospecting and I make cold calls and things like that. I send out cold emails. But once I make contact with a person, the only funnel I have is that they go into a prospect list of people, and then I'm going to follow up with them at later dates
Right.
if they have any kind of interest uh, in what I do.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about your prospecting or cold calling, cold emailing. Do you prefer calling over emailing or vice versa? What do you like better, and what are some practices that you use that are valuable?
Well, I, cold calling is something that I've only been doing for like the last 2 years, and cold calling and cold emailing. Um, I don't like cold calling, and so I actually have my wife do most of the cold calls and most of the cold emails. I prefer to use attraction marketing, where I have people contacting me
Right.
because they have an interest, and so and actually the cold calling has been the most time time
For
consuming
sure.
way of getting business, and it hasn't been the most effective way of getting business. I've gotten some huge gigs from cold calling, so I continue to do it. But most of the time, I'm spinning my wheels with the cold calls and the cold emails. In some respect, I think sending out a cold email is better than cold calling,
Hmm.
because you could send out a whole bunch of emails once you get the contact
Hmm.
information. And but and then if they have an interest, they can obviously respond to you, and then you can start up a conversation that way. But basically what we do is we get online and we get on Google and we look up events. And so whether it's a conference or an association event, a sales meeting, trade show, and let's say we're looking for a trade show, looking to book a trade show. We'll look up trade shows in whatever city that we want to go to, and we'll see what trade shows are happening, and then we'll find the exhibitor list, and then we just contact the
And
exhibitors.
you just contact each exhibitor, and the first one to say yes, that's the one who gets you at the trade show.
Yeah, and but it sounds easier,
No, of course not. But
said than
I
done,
think it's really
But
funny. I think it's
that's
funny that you're targeting all of the people at the same event. Like you know that you want to be at that trade show, but you're not really worried about for who you're working. And I think that that's
yeah,
a very valuable and interesting tip that someone
yeah,
wouldn't think of.
yeah, definitely. It's like I don't care who hires me, just
Yeah,
hire
like
me.
I want to do magic at this event for one of you. So
Yeah.
who can pay the most? So my question is, so I know that for me, I know that I have found that cold calling works a little bit, but for the most part, I've found exactly what you're saying. It wastes way more time than it's valuable, and the amount of times that you end up having to sell what you do to the person who isn't even the one booking you. Like you end up on the phone with someone who is still one or two people away from the person you actually need to speak to, but they sort of need you to explain what they're doing. Whereas with emails, you can basically get right to the person who you need to speak to, and your only challenge is making sure they open it.
Yeah, yeah. And you could contact a lot more people through email as well.
100%. You can make real use
So
of a
that
template.
What
Yeah, and in that respect, it starts becoming a numbers
Right.
game.
what would you suggest as a subject line for cold emailing people? I think that's a very like if you want
It
someone to
depends
open
on
it, right?
Yeah, it depends on who your market is, and what it is that you're targeting. Obviously, if you're targeting trade shows, then you would put the name of the trade show
Hmm.
in there. And I don't think there's any like tricks or things that will have increase your open rate.
Hmm.
It's like some people say put the first name of the person that you're contacting to. Well, I do that. I don't know. I don't necessarily know that it actually increases my opening rate. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I have no idea.
The one
I
tip
just
that
do
I
it.
heard was, and they had some follow-up tips with it, but it was that look through your emails, through the emails you've got from friends or family or peers, and look at those titles and use sort of that format. And the reason is like, when you get a title where like, there's 10 words and they're all capitalized, it's most likely coming from an organization. Whereas when you have like a max, the first word capitalized, like only a couple word title, that's the one that comes from your friend. They're like project, delivery, so
Yeah.
and so. Versus another one has like, big words, the word free or 20% off or something like that. and that will, first of all, that'll tell all the email junk readers that they might not want you, which could be a problem. But more importantly, like, if someone's checking email for the first time, they want something that sounds like it's coming from an old friend, or that it's, you know, a new business opportunity or a pitch or something, then they do that. It's
very
like
true.
Yeah. So that was one thing that I've heard, but I mean, like, I think what you said is true, which is that, you know, working on tweaking the titles of the emails there might be better place to maybe put your effort than that.
Let me give you some information, because it's something I really want to touch
Absolutely.
on. And so in my business, the number one reason that that has created the most success in this business is that once I have a customer, that person goes into my database, and I keep in constant contact with that person. So I have people that have hired me every year for the last 15 years. Okay, I have people that would have hired me 12 years ago and will go 5 or 6 years without hiring me, and then out of the blue they call me up and they hire me for a
So
gig.
is that kind of like a funnel of sorts, or do you do it yourself?
Yeah. No, basically what I do is I have a database of not only my customers, but also many of the prospects that have expressed interest in hiring me. Also, in that database, I also, well, they're separate databases, but they're all tied together. And I have like my family and friends in there as well. And I send out a snail mail newsletter to everybody.
Once a month?
Once a month. Once a month, I send out a snail mail newsletter, and basically it's a one-pager, tri-folded. The inside of it has an article of basically just what I've been doing for the last month. You know, all the gigs that I've been doing, people that I've met, things like that. Anything personal going on. When I got married, I put that into the newsletter. I got a whole bunch of emails from people congratulating me on my marriage and things like that. On the other side, I'll have like a couple of testimonials, reviews from recent customers, and then I'll have a cartoon that's maybe related to the month. But, you know, like for Thanksgiving, I'll have a cartoon about Thanksgiving, and then I'll have an inspirational quote from somebody that I admire, and I'll put that in there. So it's a real easy read. And so when the customer gets this, it's tri-folded, it's tabbed, stamped. They don't have to open up an envelope or anything like that. They immediately see it. They don't even have to open it, but they're going to see my picture. They're going to see my name. They're going to see my name. They're going to see my contact information. They're going to see a call to action, and it's going to say something. You know, if you have an upcoming event, you know, contact me. Not those words, but you know, it's written out a lot.
And this is an email newsletter, right?
No, this is a snail mail newsletter. It's a real. So it's going to cost me. I send mine out to about 700 people. So I forget what the postal rate is right now. I think they lowered it down to 47
something
cents,
like that for
I
you guys.
But so just for a postage, it's going to cost me $329
a month
just for postage, a month. Yeah, but there's never a time that I send out that newsletter and not book gigs from it. At the very least, I know I'm going to make enough money. I'm going to book at least one gig and make enough money to pay for my expenses and give me a little profit. But I've booked as much as $10,000 in 1 month as a direct result of that email. I mean, I'm sorry, not that newsletter.
Wow.
That's not counting the other ways that I'm generating business. That is just a direct result from the newsletter, because I stay in touch with my customers over time, and so I have a lot of customers that will hire me time and time again. So it's easier to sell your services to somebody that already knows you, likes you, trusts you, knows that you do a fantastic job, than try to reach out to somebody cold and try to convince them that you can do a great job.
Wow.
You
just let them know you're a person before you sell it to them the first time, and then continue letting them know that you're alive and a human being and interested.
Yeah, otherwise they'll forget about you. You could be a phenomenal magician, a great guy, but you don't stay in touch with them.
Yeah, they're
Gonna
just
forget
gonna
about you.
remember, 10 years ago I saw one of the best magic shows. Don't remember the guy's name, but it blew my mind.
Yeah.
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 You don't want to be that guy. You'd rather be the one. Wow, that's interesting. And especially in a time where, very little marketing strategies for magicians end up with actual physical mail, with postage.
Yeah, everybody goes to email, and I have nothing against email. I don't send out a monthly email newsletter. I don't have people sign up to that because based where I'm at, I'm in Los Angeles, so you have the Magic Castle here in Los Angeles, and so when I did have like a sign up form on my website, which I recommend for most people, but I don't have it because most of the time people would contact me just because they were trying to get into the Magic
Right,
Castle.
and you were like, I'm not your secret in.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Can
don't
you
have a
get us
contact.
into the Magic Castle? By any chance?
You guys come down to LA, I'll get you guys in.
Perfect. That's really awesome, that mail thing. And I know for me, without a doubt, 100%, my best and highest paying bookings have booked me multiple times. And it is without a doubt because I call them at the same time of year, or email them really at the same time of year the next year to follow up. And I even talk to them at the event about the following year and about all the fun new things that we can do. And, you saying that most people lose out on gigs by not going back to the customers that already like them, and instead trying to fight for new ones, sort of really, really helps, make that firm what I thought, which is that it's so much easier to book someone a second time than it is, it's so much easier to get someone to rebook you than it is to convert a whole new person. So I think that's very valuable, and specifically the email, the mailing
newsletter
thing is very valuable. And I've heard a lot about email newsletters using a very similar tactic.
Which most people don't open.
And I think you're right.
They just don't open it. And at least with the snail mail, at the very least, they're going to see your face. They're going to see your contact information. They're going to get reminded of it, even if they don't open it up and read it.
They know you still magician. Lou still exists.
Yeah,
it's like when you get a flyer and you're not trying to sell your home, but a real estate person leaves a flyer in your mailbox. You still see the real estate person's face and read Remax or whatever the hell it is, right? Like it's there. It's physical. You're not going to just close your eyes and throw it out.
Right. And you'll be surprised as to how many people actually read the whole thing. Whereas I don't know, when I get a ton of email from people that I've subscribed to, and I rarely read their emails. Sure. I just delete. I don't even get off their list. I just delete. Eventually I get off their list, but if I get too much stuff, but I don't read most of the emails that come my way.
Yeah, and me too. I totally feel that. Like, the only time when it's different, which is just, I think, worth mentioning for somebody who wants to do something over email, is, there's many things, not many, but there's a few things that I'm subscribed to that when they email me, the emails are so packed with value and things that I'm interested in that I jump and I run to go read the email. So, and I think that that's sort of a tipping of the hat to what you're doing with the comic in the snail mail, which is that, even if people aren't looking to book you, they might be interested to just see what this month's comic is about. And I think that it might be very similar with email, where, if you can make sure that every month you're sending like a cool magic video, or you're sending whatever, something that'll give value to that audience, you can do a good job of increasing open rates and getting some engagement out of it.
Sure. I was going to say something, I kind of blanked out, and now I don't remember. So go ahead.
That's okay. So we've got the mail, we've got the following up with clients, we have websites.
Oh, I remember
Go
what I
ahead.
was going to say, which is I think important. Okay, so I had somebody ask me one time. He says, "Well, what if I only have 10 customers?" I said, "Well, then how easy
Mail's
is that?
easier,
You just
yeah.
send out to yeah. It's like it's going to cost you $4.70 to send out 10 newsletters. It's easy,
Hmm.
And this guy was a guy that was working in. He had a bunch of restaurants that he was working at. I said, you can just a newsletter or even a postcard, just letting people know that where you're at. Um,
Hmm.
for the month, what restaurants you're working at, and that way they could come see you if they want. And even if they don't come to see you, it doesn't really matter. You just want to remind them that you're here. So I have my gardener outside. Hopefully, it's not making a whole bunch of noise for you guys.
It might,
Uh,
whatever. We'll figure it out on the playback. We'll see whatever we can do.
all right.
So just we'll ask you a couple more final questions before we wrap up. The first is that, if there's someone who's looking for advice for getting into this thing, what would you say to them? We're just looking for advice. I mean, I keep prefacing that it's advice for somebody getting into it, but I think that there's always, small things that we can use to help step up what we're doing. Is there anything that you think is like something that someone can implement right now? They don't have to start designing a website, or they don't have to. I mean, the snail mail thing is pretty valuable, but I'm just wondering if there's any other tools that you have that someone could do right now and possibly get a little bit of immediate results.
Yes. There's so much. I mean, I actually, if you really dig deep into what the things that I've talked about today, I've gave a lot of really
I think
valuable
so too.
information that people can really step up their game. I'm not going to say it's easy. It is time consuming. Like I said, I spend at least 40 hours a week working on my business every single week. But this is what I would do if I was starting out, and this is exactly what I did do. Find a mentor, someone who's doing this professionally. Um, Even if you don't have a mentor, it's like even if you were to uh, ask somebody out to lunch, someone that's a professional, invite, pay for their lunch and pick their brain for the price of a burger. That's what I tell people. You could pick my brain for the price of a burger. You just, take me out to lunch, you talk to me, and I'm happy to share information with people. But so you ask a professional that you admire, that you respect, for advice, and then once they give you this information, take action on it, because knowledge without action is completely useless. It's only the implementation of that knowledge that creates something of value. And so just as I gave a bunch of information today, most people will listen to this podcast and they
Not
won't
do a
do
thing.
anything with anything, right? So if you just take one idea and you implement it, you take action on it, you will see results. And so
I think
that's
that
the
is a
most
good
important thing.
take-home point for everybody, which is that there's got to be something, no matter what your level is, there has to be something in this episode where you can add value. And for me, I think, just to put it in perspective, my favorite idea, which is one that I have heard of and thought of for a while, but I'm more convinced, is the blog. But I think that it's a lot more work right now. But my number one thing that I'm going to go do as soon as I can bear is to see what Google's basic SEO tips are and see what I can implement. Because right now, my SEO is as far as me telling Google I was a business and then me hoping. So yeah,
Right.
so definitely I'll use some of that to see if I can bump it up. And there are a ton of great things that you've said in the episode. Go ahead.
Yeah. One more tip I want to give people, and I'm a huge believer in mirroring other people,
Hmm.
and that is mirroring the actions of other people who are more successful than I
If it
am.
works, don't
And
break it.
yeah, it's like see what other people are doing and emulate
Hmm.
them. Don't exactly copy it, but emulate their actions. If you have successful magicians who are advertising on Google, you cannot say that Google AdWords does not work. Maybe it hasn't worked for you, but maybe because it's not working for you because you're not doing it correctly. Obviously, there are people who are doing it and they're incredibly successful. So what is it that they are doing to create success in that business? So it doesn't matter what it is, what aspect of the business. Find someone who is successful at it and just mirror their activities, mirror their actions.
And I think that is some really, really good advice. There's a couple of last things that we do when we wrap up. The first is you have the ears of at least millions of magicians at home listening to, most likely dozens, but no. At least millions of magicians listening to this at home. Is there anything that you would like to tell them? Anything from talking about your magic product, or some words of wisdom, or we've gone so far as to hearing people, scold the magic community on things that they should or shouldn't do. So is there any, words that you have now that you've got the ears of every single magician in the world?
Sure. Yeah. First, I like to direct them to a couple of websites. The first is my main website, which is louserrano.com. That's spelled L-O-U-S as in Sam, E-R-R-A-N-O.com. Go to my website. You can see exactly who I am, what I do. You can actually do a Google search for my name. You'll see page after page after page of me in the real world as a performing magician. Secondly, if you want to create a viable business, go to sixfiguremagic.com. And that's all spelled out, sixfiguremagic.com. On that site, I sell my my marketing course for magicians. It is everything that I do to create the business that I have right now, and it's over 50 ideas and strategies that I use, and there's a whole bunch of information on it. And actually, what I'm going to do, for your listeners,
Our audience, beautiful,
and your audience. I'm gonna put up a discount
unreal
code for your listeners.
Awesome.
So just if they were to put in the word, let's use the word discourse. If they put in the word discourse, they will get a 20% discount on that
massive
product. So 20. It is a pretty big discount. There's a video on there that explains a lot of the stuff. There's some people who have used the material on there who have created a six-figure incomes from the stuff that they've learned from my course. And there's a whole bunch of information. Check it out, sixfiguremagic.com. If you want, you can also go to louserranomarketing.com. And that is my blog for. I give a bunch of free tips. I put a bunch of free videos on there. I haven't updated it recently, but even if you go into the archives, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you would get for free on building your business. So that's the three things that I wanted to talk about. Sixfiguremagic.com, which is the course. Put in the coupon code discourse, get a 20% discount. The last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to leave your listeners with a quote from Orison Swett Marden. It's a quote that I recite to myself every day, and it goes like this: "A lobster, when left high and dry among the rocks, does not have the sense enough to make his way back to the sea, but waits for the sea to come to him. If it does not come, he remains where he is and dies, although the slightest effort would enable him to reach the waves which are perhaps within a yard of him. The world is full of human lobsters, people stranded on the rocks of indecision and procrastination, who instead of putting forth their own energies are waiting for some grand billow of good fortune to set them afloat."
Wow.
So my thing is, don't be a human lobster.
Don't be a lobster.
Take action. Yeah, take action on the ideas that you learn, and you'll see results.
And honestly, I think that is really, really beautiful, because one of the main number one things to do if you are trying to get booked more is to do. You know, because if you do one thing, if you're sending newsletters and you find that it doesn't work, maybe send snail mail. Or if you're sending snail mail and you find that it doesn't work, maybe send newsletters. If your cold calls don't work, do cold emails. If those don't work, do Google Ads. So it's all in, you know, the testing and the trial and error, and you will not know what works best for you if you don't try anything. Stop being a lame lobster.
Yeah, there you go. And you know, people ask me what's the one main thing that you can do to get work, and the thing is, I don't know of one way to get a gig, but I know 50 different ways to get a gig, and I use all of them.
Right. There is no one surefire method.
Right.
So one of the last things that we do on the podcast is we sort of go through one at a time and we mention either something that was very valuable from this podcast or something that we thought was particularly important or something that we just wanted to highlight as a take-home point for the people at home. So for me, I love the idea of first of all, I think the snail mail idea is very smart and it's incredibly unique. And I think that it adds a lot of value. And I think that, you know, I had inklings of the idea of the blog before, but I had my reservations because I was nervous that I wanted to direct an audience for the blog. But I think what you're saying about the fact that if you just talk about what you've been up to and things that are happening in your life, you know, you are a voice, you are kind of like a mini star. So people will be interested in what that material is, and it's better to have it and get all the googly benefits than it is to not have it and not have it. Tyler, do you have any final things from the episode that you loved?
Yeah, I like, I had a lot of anxiety about calling people before this conversation, and the reason was I didn't want to feel terribly, you know, intrusive and sort of give them the option to ignore me. And I realized how stupid that is. Like, why give them the option to ignore me? I like the idea of calling someone to build rapport and let them know that you're a real human being with, you know, thoughts and feelings and, you know, making a genuine connection. Like, that seems to be the way business is done, right? Through genuine connections. So I'm going to try doing a lot more calling and a lot less emailing in the future.
Nice. And Lou, is there anything from you from the episode, either something that you said that you think is particularly important or just part of the conversation that you think is great that happened, or anything that you want to highlight? What would it be?
Don't be a human lobster.
There you go. Do not be a human lobster. So with that, I'll just do one last reminder, www.sixfiguremagic.com, and enter the word discourse for a 20% discount, which is massive. And, you know, with the type of information and the type of value that you just offered, I think that they know what they're expecting from the sixfiguremagic.com, and I think that that's a good thing. And they know that they're getting, exactly like you said, strategies and tactics, because it is plural. You know, you need to plug into as many places as you can and do all the best practices as well as you can. And I think that taking a helping hand from, you know, sort of like you said, following a mentor and following their advice and executing on it is the best way to do it. And you've got 20 some odd years of doing this, and seems like since you jumped into the magic, you've been hitting the nail on the head. So thank you so much. Remember, www.sixfiguremagic.com, enter discourse. And one last big thank you to Lou. Lou, thank you so much for coming on and sharing absolutely everything and allowing us to pick your brain. We owe you a burger.
All right. Had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone at home for listening. We will see you all on the next episode of Discourse in Magic.
Peace.